Good morning, one and all. We are going to discuss about a new topic, natural resources. Natural resources means the sources which are available in the nature. They are called as natural resources. Say, for example, water, temperature, air. So these are all called as natural resources. So these natural resources, these are all non-living things. They are also called abiotic factors. So these factors, they are very essential for the existence of the life. So here, if you observe that, if you find other planets, we can find only the living organisms on the Earth. This is because of the different factors or the different types of abiotic components that is responsible, or they are very necessary for existence of life. So if you take on the Earth, so here we have different types of the layers, or you can say spheres. This includes lithosphere, hydrosphere, atmosphere and biosphere. So lithosphere means the land part of the land on the Earth. This is constitute lithosphere. So here it may be a rock, soil, they all comes under lithosphere. Hydrosphere refers to water, means most of the Earth it is covered by water. That is 75% of the Earth is covered by water. So and some part of the water they are also present in the form of underground water, and some part in the form of a ice in cold regions. So here, and some in the form of rivers, ponds, lake, everywhere it will be distributed. So they are, both of them are essential for existence of life. Again, atmosphere constitute air. So here air, it contains different types of the gases. Say it may contains nitrogen. So nitrogen around 78%. Oxygen, it contains 21%. Carbon dioxide, it is 0.021%. Means there are like that different gases are there. Most important of them are nitrogen, oxygen. They are very essential for the Earth, and carbon dioxide is helpful for the plant. So here the next one, biosphere. So all the lithosphere, hydrosphere, atmosphere, they are all essential for the existence of life. So though in those areas all these work they act on them and helpful for the existence of the life. That is what we call biosphere. Bio refers to life, means where the life is existed, in those area you can find, means which is we'll find lithosphere, hydrosphere, atmosphere. Means all these three components are very essential for the existence of the life. So where life is existed, those are called as biosphere. So this is about the different status of atmosphere. Next, first we'll discuss about, so here the main concept of the topic is, so how the air, water and soil, these are the main three components, how they are interacting with the living organisms and what is their role, how they are going to form and how we are polluting them and what are the adverse effect of that. So these are the things we are going to discuss. So here mainly we are discussing first air, then followed by water, then by soil. So this is about the topic of natural resources. So here, as the air contains different composition, the composition of nitrogen is more, it is 78%, and oxygen is 21%, and carbon dioxide is less. Okay, so as we observe that the percentage of carbon dioxide is produced more. Say we breathe carbon dioxide out whenever we burn anything, say fossil fuels and automobile exhaust. So all we are emitting carbon dioxide. So though carbon dioxide emission is very high, but the percentage in the atmosphere is very low. Why? Because carbon dioxide, it is fixed into different ways. Say one thing is that plants utilize carbon dioxide. So plants, they utilize carbon dioxide for what purpose? Photosynthesis. In order to prepare the food, they use carbon dioxide. This is in one way it will be fixed. Another one, marine animals. Marine animals, they use dissolved form of carbon dioxide, that is carbonates, shells. For example, shells, they are made up of calcium carbonate. So they also, in this way, carbon dioxide, even the production is more, it is utilized by the plant as well as by marine animals. So this is about the carbon. And if you see that, as our earth is protected by air, the air, it acts as a blanket. So it will protect the earth in different ways. Say for example, so during the daytime, it will not, when the sun rises up, it will not become suddenly hot. So gradually as the time goes up, so the heat, we will feel that. So in the morning it will be somewhat cold, later it will be hot, like that. And again in the night time, so the cooling, again it will be in a gradual cooling will be there. So what actually mean is that the air, it will never allow sudden rise of the temperature or sudden cool of the temperature. Here the air acts as a bad conductor. It will not allow the heat to escape directly from the earth, and at the same time it will not allow the heat enter directly into the earth. Like that, the air acts as a bad conductor. You see that, for example, this is the earth and this is our atmosphere. So the sun rays, they are falling on the earth, they contain some energy. So this energy, so during the time, how much of energy is required, energy required by the earth, it will be absorbed, and remaining extra energy, it will escape outside. So this is what we call re-radiation. Re-radiation means, so energy which is coming to the earth, it is in the form of radiation. So the excess of energy, it has to go outside. This is what we call re-radiation. Re-radiation occurs during the night time. So here, if as the air acts as a blanket, it will not suddenly allow to escape the heat from the earth, so that it will maintain the temperature of the earth both during the daytime and night time. And it is not only the day and night time, it will be maintained throughout the year. Thus, while air acts as a blanket. And as I said that the percentage of carbon as it is more, though it is to be utilized in two different forms, but you see that there will be no life on the Mars and Venus. Why? Because in life of Mars, they contain around 95 to 97% of carbon. So on their planet, they contain around this much of carbon dioxide. That's why it is very difficult for the existence of life. At the same time, here, as I said, that the atmosphere, as they controlling the heat, so they acts as a barrier. So it's just like a blanket. So this is the other role of air in generally. Then let's see that as we observe that during rainy season or in some after summer, sometimes it's because of very hot, sometimes there will be a movement of cold air, so that feel us to feel cold or something. Okay, this is because why? The land they contain is very cold. So how this air they move from one region to another region? What is the reason for movement of the air, which causes the air to move from one region to another region? So let's discuss about that. So here so consider this is the land and this is the water or ocean. Say, let's see, this is the land. Okay. So here the earth, they get its energy from the sun, and here the heating of the earth, it is not even, because the heating is uneven throughout the earth, because the land heat up more quickly than the temperature in the case of sea. Here this is an uneven heating takes place. So during uneven heating, it causes differences in the pressure. See that. For example, while preparing any dish, see that if you add if the hot vessel, if it is too hot, just you pour some water, so they start getting evaporating, right? Means any substance which get energy so they start rising upward. So here also the air, after having energy, they start rising upward. And one best example is that you see the burning of incense stick, ಊದಿನ ಕಡ್ಡಿ. ಊದಿನ ಕಡ್ಡಿ ಹೊಗೆ ಯಾವಾಗಲೂ ಮೇಲಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಕೆಳಗೆ ಹೋಗಲ್ಲ, ಹೌದಾ? Why? Because so the fumes, it contains some energy, so that the energy will rise upward, like that. So on the land, when the air which is present on the land, so when they get heat energy, they get energy from the land, so that as the air become warm and hot, then these air they start rising upward. Okay, then here also in the sea, also in the water body, here also the air which is present above the sea, they will also rise upward, but this is very slow process compared to land. The rising of the air over the sea, it is very slow process. So because of there is a differences in the pressure, what happened, so the air which blows from sea to land, so this occurs during the daytime, because during the daytime only the air will rises upward fast in the land compared to sea. That's why the wind they blow from sea to land, and this is what we call sea breeze. During the night time it will become reverse. What happened, so the air over the land, it will cool fast compared to sea. That's why there will be more pressure on the land and less pressure in the sea. Again there is a difference in the pressure, so that the air, the wind, they blow from land to sea, and this is what we call land breeze. So land breeze occurs during the night time. So here the differences in the pressure, there are not only the temperature is not the main concept, main important factor. Apart from temperature, there are other factors also there. So here that is nothing but rotations of the earth. The rotations of the earth, it is also important factor, while movement of the wind. At the same time, mountain regions, because if the mountains are too big, so they will prevent movement of the wind, which causes, so like that, the temperature, uneven heating of the temperature, rotations of the earth, and another one is that the mountain regions. These are the different factors, they are also responsible for, or they causes for the wind. Then after all discussing how about the wind they causes, let's move on to rain. Then let's see how rain occurs. So as you know that as the air rises upward, they also take some amount of water vapor in them. As the water rises upward and upward, they start becoming cool, and they get condensed, and they form clouds. So here these water vapors in the clouds, they get condensed, and they form bigger and bigger particles. So these water droplets, so they mix with some dust particle, and here these dust particles, they acts as a nucleus. So as these water droplets, they get condensed, as they become bigger and they heavy, then they causes rainfall. This is how the rain occurs. And in some cases, if the area is too cold, then in those cases even you can find stones, sleeks, so that will be fallen along with the rain. Then let's see the air pollution. So as we are using the air, at the same time we are polluting air also. Let's see what is air pollution actually. So air pollution is an undesirable change in physical, chemical, biological changes, and undesirable, you can say physical, chemical, biological changes in air. That is what we call air pollution. So let's see how air pollution occurs. So as we know that industries, they releases harmful gases. So these gases, they pollute, they contain some carbon monoxide and large number of carbon dioxide, sulfur dioxide will be exist, they will be released into the atmosphere. So it is very difficult for that. And at the same time, burning of fossil fuels like coal and petroleum, they contain sulfur oxide, sulfur dioxide and nitrogen dioxide. So these oxides of the elements, they mix with water and they form acids. They form acid like sulfuric acid, and nitric acids. So in order to form sulfuric and nitric acid, the concentration should be high. Means where there is a highly polluted area in some regions, they may cause us acid rain. Acid rain means because of those sulfur dioxide, nitrogen dioxide, they mix with water, they form sulfuric and nitric acid, they fall in the form of rain, and that is what we call acid rain. If acid rain happens, it will destroy the both living and non-living components. So living components, wherever in those areas, so living organisms, plants, animals or humans, whatever, they will get damaged. At the same time, monuments, buildings, they will get eroded, and the soil nature will become acidic. It is very difficult to grow the crops in those areas. So these are the different hazardous problems along with that. And sometimes you might see that while burning of the fossil fuel, they contain some unburnt particles. They are called hydrocarbons. They present in the polluted air. Okay, these unburned carbon particles, they are called as hydrocarbons. So these particles, even they mix with water droplets, they causes non-visibility of non-visibility means, say for example, the formation of smoke. So if the dust particle, hydrocarbons mix with the water, they form smog, and it is very difficult to see the objects nearby them. Why? Because it will reduce the visibility. So that in that case, for example, you might observe in case of Delhi. So Delhi is highly polluted city, and the government, they make arrangements of alternative usage of vehicles on odd and even number. Like that, they have made different arrangement. Even the Supreme Court also asked the government to take certain actions. So as these are the related about pollution, so how we can reduce the pollution? So air pollution can be reduced by growing more and more trees. If you grow more trees, means they can absorb easily carbon dioxide, and at the same time we have to reduce the usage of hydrocarbons, that is carbon, coal and petroleum. We have to reduce that. We have to go for natural energy resources like solar energy, hydro energy, tidal energy that is obtained from waves. So these are the things we have to adapt natural resources irrespective of that of using hydrocarbons. So this is about the air pollution. Next, move on to second type of natural resources, that is water. As most of the earth is covered by water only, it is located in underground water and even in polar regions. So in ocean, seas, so we can find most of the earth is covered by water only. So even though there is a huge number of water, but availability of the water is very less, because some fresh water, we require only fresh water, and some fresh water is available in the form of rivers, ponds, and some in the underground and some in the polar caps. Thus, while the availability of means, even though we have a bucket of water, then but usage is available only up to only a spoon. So that's why we have to save water. Then why water is very important? So because if you observe in our cell, all the biochemical activity they taking place in the dissolved form. Say for example, whatever we eat, afterwards we will drink water. So the digested food, it will be in the dissolved form, it will carry along with the water to different part. Means the blood mainly contains the water, so through that it will be distributed, and any biochemical activity that takes place, that will be in the water content. That's why water is very essential to take place. Then here, in order to transport the substances from one region to another region, we require water. And here terrestrial animals, they mainly depending upon the fresh water. So even if we cannot drink the sea water, because our body system has adjusted to only the fresh water. If you drink salt water, again suddenly we'll drink fresh water, because our body cannot tolerate such high salt content. That's why the water is very essential for the organisms. Let's see how water causes pollution. So here, what is actually water pollution? Water pollution means an undesirable change in physical, chemical, biological changes of water. Means undesirable means we have to add different constituents to the water and make it unfit for drinking. They're called water pollution. Say for adding fertilizers and pesticides, so we add them to kill the insects and pests. But if the rain falls and excess of water they flow, they take away these fertilizers and pesticides near the water bodies, and they cause us water pollution. And again, sewages from the cities and towns. So usually in most of the cases, as we observed that the sewage of the cities directly they are drained into the nearby rivers. By this way they cause us water pollution. Okay, and you might observe that nearby Haryana, you see that the drainage is directly coming, it is in contact with the water. So this we can observe. Then especially near the temple, just if you go beside, just you will see that the sewage is in contact with the river. Then industrial effluents. So here industries, they use the water to cool the machines. But here, if such hot water, if they release directly into cold water, it causes imbalance. It causes death of the organ. Say how it causes. Say for example, so if you are standing and if you pour a hot water on you, so how is your reaction? So you cannot tolerate and you will throw a stone. Those who through the water, right? So same thing actually happens in the case of aquatic body. So the aquatic animal, they are living in the water, they have adjusted to the temperature in the water. If sudden release of the hot water into the aquatic body, so it will be very difficult for the aquatic animals to tolerate. So that's why they are going to die. And at the same time, if it is a breeding season, the shell, the egg of the aquatic animals, so they cannot tolerate high temperature and they are all going to get destroyed. That's why, so by this way also they are getting water pollution. And before releasing hot water, first we have to make it cool, then we can release, so that it will not affect. So by this way we have to take some actions. Okay, then so if we release the water which is stored in the dam, again it also causes water pollution, because you see that in the dam, the water which is at the bottom, it is very cold compared to surface layer, because surface layer they are getting energy from the sun, so they maintain temperature. And in the cold at the bottom, it is very cold, so that if they release the water from the dam, what happens? The cold water they move along with through the channel, and with that there is a fluctuation in the temperature. Because of that, they cause us death of some organisms. This is also one of the reason of we are polluting the water. Polluting means not only adding pesticides and other things, so we are changing temperature. It also causes water pollution. That's why we said that in the beginning, it is an undesirable change in physical, chemical and biological. Chemical, nothing but adding fertilizers and pesticides. Physical changes, changing the temperature, it is also part of water pollutions. Let's see what are the effects of that. So as the addition of undesired substance to water bodies, it changes the physical and chemical changes, and it will make unfit for drinking and for living. So here we have to remove the undesirable substances. And again, the change in temperature, I said that if hot water released directly into the water, they causes death of the organism. So that before releasing that, we have to make it cool. Then what are the controlling? How to control the pollution? So just by throwing the garbage, sewage into the water, we have to make it filter. We have to remove all the undesirable substances. Then we can release. And again, hot water is the same. So here some industries, the industries, they release the chemicals directly into water. Again we have to remove all those poisonous substances from the water. But these are the certain ways by which we can control water pollutions. Next, third is soil. The soil, it is the important component, so it provides the nutrients to grow the plant. So here let's see that how the soil is formed. There are different factors are this. So these factors they helps in the formation of soil. Let's take the sun. So let's how the sun actually helps in the formation of soil. You see that as I say while discussing in the beginning, the heating is not even. So the temperature which fall on the rocks, so here they undergoes contraction and relaxation. So this process occurs for many years. Ultimately these rocks undergoes contraction, relaxation, and they form different layers, and layers they break up into, ultimately they form into soil. And these uneven heating of the rocks, so that is during the daytime they become too hot, and again even in the night it will become too cold. So like that uneven heating and cooling, they break the rocks, the cracks will be there, and ultimately they form soil particle. Then water. So here wherever the cracks takes place in the rocks, in those area, in that particular area, if the water is deposited, say air contain moisture, the moisture is stored or deposited in those cracks and they condense, and this again further widen the cracks of the rocks. At the same time, the water molecule while moving along with them, they take some rock particles. So there will be continuous aberrations takes place between the rock particles, they causes soil. And also as water they run very fast, so they wear away the continuous flow of the water, even they causes breaking of the rocks. By this way, these are different ways by which the water makes soil. Next one, wind. So here the wind, the blowing of the wind, they take away water, again they wear away the rock particle, and they take the soil particle from one region to another region. They are also helpful in the formation of soil. Living organism. So living organism, say for example lichens, they grow on tree trunks and the rocks. So those lichens, they are growing on the rocks. In order to hold them surface properly, they use some chemicals. So these chemicals, they will break the upper surface of the rocks, and by this way as they are producing chemical, they form the rocks, they break, and ultimately they form soil. So this is how, these are the different factors by which the soil is formed. Let's see constituents of soil. If you see the soil, we can divide the soil in different layers: humus, topsoil, subsoil, like that. Let's see what is humus. So humus is a dark colored organic substance consisting of partially decayed or plant or animal waste. Means you see that some in particular area the nature of soil become too dark irrespective of surrounding area. Why? Because they contain rich in minerals. The minerals is obtained by the decaying of plant and animal. For example, gobra, fertilizer. Okay, you see that particular area where they are storing fertilizers, in those areas you see that usually the color of the soil is become black. This is because of the presence. This is what we call humus. So here these humus, they provide more fertility, as well as they helps the organisms to grow. So those bacteria which is essential for the growth of plant, it enhances the growth of those bacteria. It will provide aeration. So if the soil surface is too hard, there is no aeration takes place, means the plant will never grow. So the surface of the soil, it should be free, so that the air from the atmosphere, they can go and reach the roots, so that the plant will grow luxuriously. Otherwise it is very difficult to grow the plants. So if in order to make it porous, the nature of the soil, the humus are very important role. And next one, mineral nutrients. So mineral nutrients, These are very essential for the growth of the plant. Why? Because these minerals are obtained from the rocks. So depending upon what type of minerals obtained from the parent rock, that will decide the type of whether it is soil may be acidic or basic or neutral, they contain some minerals. Sometimes you might observe that usually we add fertilizers because in that particular area that particular minerals is absent. That's why we add fertilizers. Like that, minerals they also plays an important role while growing of the crop. So let's see the next point, topsoil. So topsoil that refers to the humus and the living organisms. The living organism and these constitute about the topsoil. Here the depth of the soil they also plays an important role. So if the topsoil containing nutrients along with living organism, it is very good for the growth of the plants. So these are the different constituents of soil. So after discussing constituents of soil, let's move on to another concept, that is biogeochemical cycle. So biogeochemical cycle means, you see that here bio refers to life, geo refers to earth, chemical nothing but minerals. Elements which are essential for the living organism. These elements, these chemicals, they will circulate from earth to living organism and it will be continuous. Hence it is called as biogeochemical cycles. In this biogeochemical cycles we are going to discuss about nitrogen cycle, carbon cycle and another one oxygen cycle. These are the concepts we are going to discuss. So let's see the first one, water cycle. So water cycle means, so this one, as you see that the heating of the surface of the earth, it is not even, it is more in the land and it is less in the water. As during the daytime the water from the land surface they start getting evaporation. So as the evaporation more and more, what happened, it will be rises upward and they form clouds. So from the clouds they get condensed, and ultimately they form clouds, and whenever these water droplets will become heavy, again they will fall on the land surfaces. So by this way the water which is taken away from the surface of the earth, again it will be stored in the form of cloud, again it will come back into land surface. This is what we call water cycle. And here whatever the earth which come from the in the form of a rain, not all the water they directly move into same sea or the ocean. Some will flow in the form of their river, some they will store in the ponds, some will store in the form of underground water, like that. So the water which is in large quantity in particular area, it will be distributed to the different parts of the earth in the form of a rain. So this is how what is actually the water cycle. Let's move on to next one, nitrogen cycle. Nitrogen cycle here means the how nitrogen from the atmosphere it is incorporated into plants and animals, and again how it will go back. This is the things we have to discuss. So we know that there are 78% of nitrogen present in the atmosphere. So most of the plants they cannot take nitrogen directly from the atmosphere because the mechanism is not present in those plants. So here in those cases the nitrogen first has to be fixed into the soil. So how this takes place, then this nitrogen from the atmosphere, because of presence of lightning, thunder and rain, because of that the nitrogen present in the atmosphere they move into soil and they form compounds of nitrogen, say nitrates and nitrites. They convert into nitrates and nitrites. So once they convert into nitrates and nitrites, and the plants, again the microorganisms some present in the soil, they convert nitrate into ammonia compounds. So from in the form of a compound, it will be absorbed by the plants, and they form amino acids. So amino acids, they are essential for the formation of proteins. By this way they utilize nitrogen from the atmosphere. But some plants, they have a ability to absorb nitrogen from the atmosphere. These plants are called as leguminous plants. Leguminous plants. So in these plants, the roots of the plant, they contain some root nodules. So these are the root nodules where bacteria, say the bacteria name is Rhizobium. Rhizobium bacteria, they are inhibiting in the root nodules of leguminous plants. So these bacteria, they can absorb directly from the atmosphere, and they supply the nitrogen to the plant, which in turn they'll get nutrients from the shelter from the plant. So here both plants as well as bacteria, they are get benefited each other. So this type of mutual relationship is called as symbiosis. This is called as symbiosis. Symbiosis is a mutual relationship. Mutual relationship between two organisms. This is what we call symbiosis. Okay, then afterwards, once it is fixed in the plant, so it will be a green plant, then we human beings and animals, they depends on plant directly or indirectly. So as we feed on the plants, the proteins which are present in the animal, again they move into animal body. Once these plants and animals they die, so the nitrogen present in the body, again they move into soil by the actions of decomposers. Again these nitrogen compound, again they finally convert into nitrates and nitrites, and some bacteria even they break nitrates and nitrites into atmospheric nitrogen. Again that nitrogen they will go back into nitrogen back into the atmosphere back. So this is how the nitrogen from the atmosphere move into plants and animals. Again the death of the plant animal because of the different decomposers and bacteria, they go back, move into atmosphere. Hence, as this is what we call nitrogen cycle. So next one, carbon cycle. Again here also we are going to discuss about how carbon dioxide is incorporated in living beings, and again how it will go back. So these are the concepts that we have to discuss. So carbon in the atmosphere, it is mainly fixed into the plant with the help of photosynthesis. So the plants, they take up carbon dioxide and release oxygen, and some of the carbon dioxide they use marine animals to produce their shell. And how carbon dioxide is go back into atmosphere? Again by burning, we release carbon dioxide during respiration. Okay, so we'll take oxygen and release carbon dioxide, and again burning of the fossil fuels, industrial effluents, so again they will go back into atmosphere. By this way carbon dioxide from the atmosphere incorporated into living beings, and again it will go back into atmosphere by different ways. And you see that some of the carbon dioxide, say that they form shells, and again death of living organisms like plant and animals, if it is too pressure and high is there, again they helps in the formation of coal, that is fossil fuels. So from the fossil fuels we can extract coal and petroleum. So this is about a carbon cycle. The next one, oxygen cycle. Again here in this oxygen cycle, how oxygen is incorporated into human living organism, how again it will go back. We know that oxygen is produced into the atmosphere by the plants. Okay, so plants during photosynthesis, they take the carbon dioxide and release oxygen, and we human beings, we take oxygen directly from the atmosphere and we use it for breathing purpose, to obtain energy. That is what we call rest. By the process of respiration, we take the oxygen. By the photosynthesis, they release oxygen into atmosphere. Means plants release oxygen and human beings, they take oxygen through the process of respiration. So here, this is how the oxygen it is circulated from living organism to again go back into atmosphere. This is about the oxygen cycle. So here, let's see one more concept regarding this. Global warming. So global warming is, this is the last part of the topic. The global warming is how, means there is an increase in the concentration of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, so which causes increase in the temperature. See, for example, in the beginning class we discussed that earth is covered by a layer of a atmosphere. Okay, so this allow the excess of the heat to go, so escape from the atmosphere, right? So if the concentration of carbon dioxide, is more in the atmosphere, so it acts as a blanket. So it prevent escape of the heat from the earth, so that this re-radiated rays again it will send back to earth. Means the extra energy which is going away from the earth, again it will send back to earth only. As a result, this increases the temperature of the earth. This increase the temperature of the earth is what we call global warming. So global warming is mainly because of the carbon dioxide and other substances like CFC, chlorofluorocarbon. So these are the substances, they reduce the oxygen level in the atmosphere, means increase in the carbon dioxide, decrease in the oxygen level, so they causes global warming. So chlorofluorocarbon, it is mainly used in cooling agents like that of refrigerator, ACs. Earlier they were using, in nowadays those cooling agents may not contain these cooling agents. They use different chemical instead of that, so that they may not cause any damage to the environment. So as earlier, continuous use of these chlorofluorocarbon, they causes hole in the ozone layer. I think you know that ozone layer is a part of the atmosphere. They protect earth from UV rays which is coming from the sun. If the UV rays they fall directly on the skin, they may cause us skin problem, like it may cause us skin cancer, or the person may, or the new living organism become blind, or some infections, skin allergies. So these are different problems has to face if there is no ozone layer. So this chlorofluorocarbon, they destroy the ozone layer. Because of continuous use of chlorofluorocarbon, it make a hole in the ozone layer, and afterwards, as it is observed by the different nations, they are trying to stop, and they are not allowing to use such chemicals in the cooling agents. So again, in order to replenish the ozone layer, we have to avoid usage of such chemicals which is used in cooling agent. And again, at the same time, we have to grow more and more trees. If you grow more and more trees, means the more oxygen will be released by the trees, so that they can compensate and make the ozone layer again as in before it is. So this is about the topic of natural resources. In the next class, we will discuss another concept. Thank you.